1%. Rumors have it that 1% of all students who apply to IIT get in. Perhaps you've heard of MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. IIT is the Indian version of that, the Indian Institute of Technology. Over 1 million high school graduates take the exams to apply to India's engineering universities every year. And of these, only 25% might do well enough to be considered by IIT. And out of all of those, less than 15,000 students actually get in. Students who get into IIT are a big deal in India. They make headlines in the country's largest national newspapers. The country of 315 million students has decided it takes someone special to get into IIT. So who do you think was hired to intern at IIT's first brain lab in the entire country? It's not quite rocket science, but still, it's neuroscience. Who's the most super promising young mind that swims ahead of all the competition? A chess grandmaster getting their 5th PhD? The grandchild of Einstein? The human incarnation of Mr. Spock from Star Trek and Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory combined? In fact, it was a 17-year-old girl from a local high school in Chennai, India. And she isn't some knight in shining armor. She's just another one of us. She's proof that the hierarchies we create are more of a flimsy deck of cards than a mountain of effort. This is the story of Chandhana Sathishkumar. Now, if I ask Chandana to describe herself to you, she'd be pretty regular, a little bit on the extra nerdy side, but not national superstar material.
I was born and raised for a couple of years in the US because my parents lived there. I'm the only daughter, and then we later moved to India a couple of years later. So when I was 6, we came back to India, and we've been living here ever since. More about me, I always loved art since I was a kid. I remember making chalk drawings, and I specifically remember the drawings, and they weren't good. But my family was always really supportive of what I did.
If I could describe her life growing up in one word, it'd be moving. She was born in the US to Indian parents, and things have been kind of mixed ever since.
I first lived with my parents, and then I lived with my grandparents in India because my parents had work and all of that in the US. So maybe I think I was 3 when I moved back with my parents.
Chandana's moved between 6 schools growing up. It's created some challenges, as you might expect.
I do have a couple of memories about going to preschool on my granddad's cycle in India, which was my first school. And I also remember the teacher talking in Tamil, which is neither my first language nor was it English. So I had no idea what they're saying. And I also remember not liking what the teacher told me to do. Like they would have really specific instructions of what an activity should be or how I was supposed to do something. And again, because I guess I would consider myself a 5-year-old artist, and my 5-year-old artist self did not approve of the way their projects looked. It was too babyish for the 5-year-old baby me. And I remember going and arguing with the teacher saying that I don't like that. And they were like, no, you have to do that. Like, otherwise you're not going to get a grade. I'm like, okay, what's a grade? What do you mean by grades? And like, that was my first introduction to the grade system.
Does this sound like the childhood of a golden prodigy destined for greatness? Chandana's certainly smart. She's certainly resilient to challenges, but not in a magical, superhuman, perfect ever after kind of way. Still, there had to be something that led her to grow from an ordinary toddler to working at IIT, right? I kept pressing to learn more about which experiences helped her grow, and that's how I discovered the first theme, art.
I decided that I liked art, so I wanted to go ahead with it. Again, just like random crayon stuff, random cards. At one point, like I ran out of things to make cards for, so I would just be like, "Happy day, happy Monday, have a great Tuesday night," specifically at 6 p.m. Like it would be really, really random for no exact reason because I didn't know what else to do. And the thing was, my parents did see how I was interested in arts and craft, and they tried putting me in classes. And I hated it because I didn't like someone telling me what to do. I wanted to draw what I wanted to, and I wanted to make what I wanted to. I did it all. I do remember very like in seventh grade, I was into fashion designing. In eighth grade, I was into magazine designing. In ninth grade, I was like doing theater, like stage setting stuff. So I did explore it all. And I think that was one of the key things that led to expressing myself.
Art was Chandana's first battleground in the war against mediocrity. She describes how it literally taught her to make a mess and do what she was told not to do. It didn't transform her into the next groundbreaking Picasso, but step by step, the contrarian spirit spread into the rest of her life.
So I was in grade 9 and I had a lot of friends in grade 11. So they were kind of able to see that I was always outspoken. So they made me audition for a contest, which was a stand-up comedy competition. Quick background, I had never done stand-up comedy before. I wasn't even into watching it. So I kind of wrote a script and kind of performed. So I got selected to represent our school at the biggest event in my city for school students to compete in. And because this is the biggest event, it was normal to have a really famous South Indian comedian there. I didn't even know who these people were until like they later came and told me that that was apparently some famous person. But I went and basically what happened was I made it to semifinal and I made it to the final the next day. And now when it was the first time I was actually doing it in front of other people. So you could say, quote unquote, the real world, where nothing is defined by one organization. Nobody cares what your name is. Nobody cares where you're from, what uniform you're wearing. It's just, what do you do then? And is it good enough to get you an award?
This seemed good, though not exponentially so. But that's when she suddenly had an unexpected break.
I started seeing other people do things like someone's doing a TED Talk, someone's getting a national award for something. I saw people my age doing something that I had never thought that I could do. And that was just like a mental shift in grade 9 and 10. By the end of grade 10, I actually got an opportunity to do a TED Talk. And I do remember this one specific girl. So when I was in ninth grade, she was in grade 12 and she did a TED Talk. And even then, I was like, wow, she did a TED Talk. But it was never, hey, what can I do to do a TED Talk? I never thought that way. So getting that opportunity that just changed almost everything for me because after that moment, anything I saw that probably looked amazing to me, the next question would be, okay, if I like it so much, how can I do it? Anyway, fast forward, I think my TED Talk went well. I'm very happy with the way I spoke and like the story. But one thing, if I could change, I would, is that I was told to remove my glasses and there was just like lights shining up my face. So I was really uncomfortable because I couldn't see. And I think I was closing my eyes for most of the video. So now looking back at the video makes me cringe because I was just closing my eyes. But apart from that, I think it went well.
All this sounds quite messy, not like the golden hero in sappy novels. But this TED Talk was the start of a series of lucky strokes. This is where things get complicated. Let's break it down.
So quick backstory. So when I was in third grade, I had my phases with art. So third grade was like obsessed with making magazines phase. So I would just like rip papers and like choose a theme for the magazine and then write stuff and then like draw stuff and like make staple it and like hand do all of that. So from then I started being interested in writing as well. And later I was like, okay, now I want to write a book. I don't know what it's going to be about. I have no idea, but I want to write a book. And I remember going down different rabbit holes. Like, do I write a story? Do I want to write fiction? I was actively thinking of what I could do, but nothing made sense. I pivoted like 10 billion times. Like I'm trying, I'm like doing half a draft and I don't like it. So I delete the whole thing.
So after the high of a TED Talk, Chandana decided on another unexpected move, writing a book. The only issue? She didn't know much about writing a book. But instead of doubling down on figuring all this out, Chandana set her sight on another pretty difficult target at the same time. TKS, the Knowledge Society. The Knowledge Society is a World Economic Forum school of the future. It trains youth all around the world to solve the world's largest problems. High school students there start companies worth millions, write in reputable scientific journals, speak at conferences to thousands, and yes, write books. While looking for inspiration, Chandana accidentally stumbled into the Knowledge Society.
I finished my TED Talk. I wanted to write a book. I didn't know what to write about. So it was that phase. And I had an off from school. So I was joining LinkedIn and I got recommendations from LinkedIn. Shout out to the amazing LinkedIn recommendation system for recommending TKS innovators. And I didn't really think much of it. But after a point of time, I started getting like hundreds of connection requests, and like everybody on my page would just be TKS innovator, activator at TKS, this TKS. Okay, I'm like, okay, let's like stop. What is TKS? Like, what do you mean? What do you guys do? And I went and checked the website out. I checked their socials. I stalked a lot of people. I am very guilty of that. But at that moment, all these years of teachers just being like, oh my God, you have so much potential, but you're just not using it, finally made sense, because like teenagers, people younger than me, just like building AI models, building things with nanomaterial, building things with emerging technologies I've never even heard of. And just like looking at people my age doing such incredible things put me in awe. I was like, wow, that is amazing. But again, that's it. I never really did anything about it. When I was like kind of going through the website, I remember the apply page, and obviously like naturally I clicked with no intentions of actually applying. And then a couple of days after, I remember getting follow-up emails saying that you have 10 days to finish your application. Like we got notified that he started it. And like, it was really fun, like with Elon Musk as a dancing robot GIF and like all of that. It was super fun. So I was like, okay, I will fill out the form just because of the chat bot sending me GIFs of Elon Musk. And that kind of leads back to like where I got the inspiration for my book. So one of the questions in the application was, tell us something you're interested about. And eventually I thought of writing about the science of memory very specifically. So that's a part of neuroscience.
And this is where neuroscience comes in. I know an entire podcast about the up-and-coming neuroscience intern, and we've gotten through 90% of her life without even talking about neuroscience. But let's get to the magic moment. How did TKS inspire Chandana to explore neuroscience?
Why did I think of that? Because I vaguely came across the topic when I was preparing for a quiz a year ago. So I was like, okay, let's do research for this. And I wrote the blurb for the TKS application. I sent in the application. I liked it so much that I was like, okay, everything I found with books or online articles were really, really technical. And I hated that. I never really wanted to read more. So my goal for the book was just to make it really small, really simple. And there you go. That led to my book.
The highlights of the episode. The 1 in a million internship. It all started as just one choice in a last-minute application to a program that she didn't even think she'd get into. One thing already seems clear. Success doesn't come from direct flights. It comes from rural detours on chartered buses on a dusty backcountry road. So anyways, Chandana applies to TKS and she's inspired to extend her application about neuroscience into a full book. 4 months later, she publishes it. Already an incredible accomplishment for a 17-year-old. But we're just going to skip over it as a footnote in Chandana's career. We have a more burning question. What happened to the application?
I wasn't really surprised when I got in. I never thought I would finish the application, and I did. And when I got my acceptance email, for some reason it felt quite natural. I didn't really think of it as a big thing. And then I applied to financial aid, and for some reason, again, overconfidence 101, I was sure that it would go through. But it didn't. It did not go through. I think we did get like 50% financial aid, which was still a lot to pay. And my parents were not okay with it. So being completely sure that I was going to be a part of this and then realizing that I wasn't was, again, it felt really, really bad. And I had no idea what to do about it because I didn't know how to raise money. Could I raise money? Was that an option? Like, I didn't know what to do.
This random high school girl around the world from most students in high-income countries had made it to one of the best programs for youth in the world. So she was good enough. But in our world, being good enough just isn't enough. What about the numbers in your bank account?
After a point, I started accepting that I wasn't going to be a part of TKS, but I had the program schedule, but I wrote down everything and I was like, okay, I will Google it myself and I will learn about it myself. And like on the same day as like TKS is doing it to like keep up with the people and all of that. And I came across things, I liked it. I was like, okay, this is something. Like it's not everything, but it's not nothing as well. I'm happy. But like I remembered that there is a page on the TKS website where you can actually meet TKS students and be like, how's the program? You could just talk to them about anything TKS related. My mind took me back to that. I was like, okay, that's just a page full of emails. And I want resources. I didn't know where to get my learning material from. So let's just spam email 20 of them and get more information. And I think someone responded in an hour after I sent it. I was like, I didn't expect even one response. And the fact that somebody responded in 1 hour after I sent them just gave me so much hope because they were like, yeah, here are some resources to get you started with this technology. And so people started replying like, hey, you could like totally book a time with me and we can talk. Again, this is not everything I wanted, but this is so much better than what I expected. And a lot of these students, they offered to help me find resources like even further down the path and like mentor me through my process. And then I started getting emails saying that this got the attention of other people. You may be reconsidered for financial aid. The next day at like 7 p.m., I got an email from Naveed, who is the co-founder of TKS, saying that he saw my emails and this is what he's looking forward in a TKS student. And he gave me a full scholarship to be here. And that kind of like a lot of people played roles in that. So every person I sent an email to, if it weren't for all these people, and I don't even know who these people are, I wouldn't even be at this knowledge society.
Any normal person would have given up at the 5th level. But this is the thing about Chandana. She keeps going to the 6th. And it's at the 6th level that the rules got a bit unexpected.
So I got sponsored to go to NFT NYC, which is a non-fungible token conference held in New York. So at that time, I was still doing online school. So I would wake up at 4 and my phone would be right beside me. And I would get notifications from the TKS channels on Slack, which is the messaging platform TKS uses. So there is this specific opportunity someone posted at 4 in the morning. So I'm just scrolling through my phone because I didn't know what else to do at 4 in the morning without my glasses. See anything? It's dark. I'm still in my bed. And I saw that. I was like, okay, opportunity to be funded to New York. I'm like, same thing all over again. This is something that looks amazing, but it's not something I'm going to be able to do. And then when I looked at the questions they were asking me, it was like, how does art impact you? How does art play a role in you? Art related questions. I was like, I could answer that. Like these questions are framed for me. So I woke up, I didn't brush my teeth. I just wore my glasses, turned my laptop on and like trying to like find pictures of art, things I've done before, because we did have to like send in pictures of our art. And I sent it out. We had a DM a person on Twitter and I got a reply in 4 minutes. And that was crazy. Like, I didn't believe it. And he was like, so do you have an ETH address? Do you know what an ETH address is? I'm like, yeah, totally. I totally know what it is, but I don't have it. He was like, okay, set that up. Like immediately Google it. Like, what is an ETH address? Like, how do I get this set up? I just learned what a cryptocurrency was. I didn't even know blockchain was a thing. And now there's somebody who is potentially ready to send me to a blockchain conference. And I'm like slowly telling my parents and they don't buy it. They don't buy it at all. They are completely convinced that their daughter is crazy. But later I did get the money transferred to my crypto wallet, which I learned what it was. I had one and now I have money in my crypto wallet. And I go show them. And again, they think this is a huge scam. My mom, like finally, she's like, okay, show me the email and I will believe you. I'm like, there is no email. Nobody sent an email. What are you talking about? She's like, where do you get the money? I'm like, Twitter DM. So fast forward, I finally transferred all the funds to my parents' account. And this is on Sunday. You have to fly on Wednesday to make it in time for the conference. That's like panic mode 101, booking flight tickets. And like, we didn't even know where to stay. We didn't know who was going. And that was kind of chaotic. But then I got in touch with other kids who were going. Yeah, that is the story of how I got a fully funded sponsorship to attend NFT NYC just because of a Twitter DM.
From never having traveled alone to going across continents in an impromptu trip in 4 days, this should have been the highlight of the year. But again, we're just going to skip over it as a footnote in Chandhana's career. Mid-year, she had a more scary and more impressive surprise.
So there's this thing at TKS where they do global challenges. So TKS partners with a real world company that's facing an issue that they would like to have solved. And it's like a hackathon, but it's longer. It's not like a couple of days. It's more of like a couple of weeks. And we're given a problem statement. Like we have to do extensive research, talk to people, like experts in the field, and come up with an idea, which is like our recommendation for what the company should do to solve their problem. So my friends and I, we formed a team and we kind of like Walmart's problem statement because it was about how we could create a better future for the store. So it was trying to make them future proof. And later, long story short, like we came up with an idea of what we thought Walmart could do. Our team got selected as one of the top 7. And we thought that we would be pitching to the Walmart team who had given us the information. They're like the partnership people with TKS. So we're going to talk to them. But then we got to know that Walmart wanted to make it a bigger event. They wanted to make it an event with the CEO of Walmart Canada and C-suite execs from Walmart International and like a lot of people, like 400 people on call, I think, and then broadcast to thousands internationally from the whole Walmart community. So that was crazy. That was not expected. That was not what we were preparing for. But it ended up going really well. And we did pitch the CEO of Walmart and like a lot of C-suite executives.
I want you to stop to understand something. Walmart is the largest company in the world by revenue. They sell over $500 billion each year. And here, we just had a 17-year-old girl pitching future strategy to a national level CEO at Walmart. This should have been the highlight of the year. But again, we're just going to skip over it as a footnote in Chandhana's career. We have the big headline to get to.
So there's this girl at school and she was like, hey, there's this brain lab at IIT Madras, which is where I live. Do you know about it? Anyway, so I didn't know that this was like a thing. So obviously it is a brain lab. And it is in my city. So naturally what I do is I reach out to the people to go visit the lab. So that's what I did. I reached out to the director of the whole university. And again, he responded to my email in 2 minutes. Like, I don't know what this thing is. Like people responding to like funding opportunities in 4 minutes and like director of the whole university in 2 minutes. It was like 11 p.m., but he still responded and put me in touch with the lab head. So I was actually able to go and we had like a 3-hour meeting. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be for 3 hours, but it ended up being for 3 hours because we were just talking about brains, the education system, just like things in general. I was like trying to ask if I could get an internship because I've never done this before. And like every mentor I spoke to before going to the lab at IIT was like, you don't get what you don't ask for. But at the same time, I'm like, how do I ask for an internship? Like, no. But I'm asking, I'm like, yeah, is there any way to like help out? And like in my mind, I'm like, it's okay if they just like let me look at the lab and like volunteer and like do tiny chores. Like I will happily do that. I will get them coffee if that's what they're going to let me do. And I'm like really awkward. Is there any way I can help out? They're like, yeah, absolutely. So which internship do you want? They're like not even giving me an internship. They're like, which internship do you want? And they're like stating 3 things. I'm like, I have no idea what any of them meant. Nothing made sense to me. So I was like, can you please elaborate about the roles? And they're like, yeah, totally. And then they elaborate about the roles. I am still clueless. I still don't know what anything means. So I'm like, what would you recommend that I take to learn the most and like get better experience? They're like, so this is what I would recommend. I'm like, okay, that is what you recommend. That is what I want. Can I have that internship? They're like, yeah, it's yours. Absolutely. And apparently, then that internship didn't exist. Like there are no internships at the Brain Lab. That is a role made so I could like help and all that. And this project is very like the project I am working on right now. It's my project. And going back to the brain touching part where I'm not a psychopath. So currently we're working with a 21-week fetal brain and a 13-week fetal brain at the lab. And I went to a brain museum in another city in my country called Bangalore. And I go, and then they had a lot of brains. So I touched it, and there was a human heart, and I also touched that. That is it. That is the whole story. I did not kill people.
You heard that right. The entire premise of this podcast. It happened because of one girl emailing 15 people, getting a response for one, being late to a meeting with them, and accidentally having them bring up the possibility of an internship. Do you believe in miracles yet? Well, I hate to break it to you. Miracles don't exist. I bet at least half the listeners of this podcast are jealous of all the things Chandhana's done. I'm not. In the story I showed above, I just showed the high points. Clearly, everything connected to make an exponential journey. But let me smooth out the graph for you.
Okay, being in a different time zone is not fun at all. I often had to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning just to attend a call I really wanted to have. So if I want help from that specific mentor or a technical person, or I want to be at the workshop, take a course, which is at like a really odd time. I mean, if it's at 1 o'clock, I just stay up and attend it. But when it's at 2, 3, 4, I have no choice but to sleep and then wake up and then try sleeping again and then go to school, because now I have to function in multiple time zones and go to school and be yelled at for being sleepy because I couldn't balance it and I just did live in different time zones. So that's definitely not fun. Also, coming back from school, I don't want to work. I don't like working after I'm back from school, after I've had an exhausting day, but I wouldn't really have a choice because unless I do it today, I will have to wait 24 hours to be able to do it again. Because Indian schools, we don't really take devices to school. All I have is this one notebook where I plan every part of my evening with detailed tasks. And as soon as I get home, it's just rest real quick, like shower, and then like a huge marathon of just like striking things off my list before I go the next day.
Think of the lives of your family, your friends. When's the last story you heard of someone being awake at 2 to 4 a.m. on most days, every week, for a year, for her own growth as a teenager? Of course, it's not like she can just be nocturnal. During the day, she attends a pre-medical preppy prep school in India. Students are expected to attend from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., do homework after, sleep, and if you're Chandana, somehow make time to start companies and pitch to CEOs and travel the world? Clearly, this wasn't going to work. Luckily, Chandana did some complex negotiation with her principal. It's kind of secret and stuff, but let's just say things are better in terms of workload. And yet still, these aren't Chandana's biggest problems.
So I guess the hardest part of this is not even the time management. It's not even staying up late. It's not waking up early. But I would say backlash, I think that's a very strong word. But just teachers would just like test me and they're like, what's this? What's that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not even trying to hide it. I don't know. I'm like, I feel really dumb. And everyone's just looking at me like, yeah, she was supposed to know that. Why did she not know that? She doesn't know anything. Oh, maybe I should just drop school and do research. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so it's like actively being against you. That is definitely the hardest thing to deal with, because even today I got yelled at for that. Yesterday I did, for the past 5 days, for the few weeks before that. So in that moment, it doesn't matter that I just set a Guinness World Record last week. I pitched to the CEO last month. I'm working on a bioplastic idea. I'm working with brains. I intern at one of the biggest labs. Like, all of this like doesn't make sense when you just have those people in front of you and like actively trying to bring you down and make you feel dumb. So at school, it's just me for 8-9 hours straight facing backlash from those people. I can come home and get all the support I want from the world. But for those 9 hours, it's just me versus them.
This is the real story of Chandhana Sathishkumar. Imagine a day in her life. You wake up at 6 a.m. You haven't had much sleep after having spent last night trying to balance school, family, friends, and several side projects. You rush to school by 8 a.m. to sit through classes tired, confused, bored, or if you're lucky, asleep. And of course, if you're lucky enough to sleep, you'll have a teacher make an example of you and remind you about how you're behind on memorizing 3 chapters of content on this course you don't care about. Since you're not allowed to use any devices, you journal messages into your little notebook so that you can share them with your online friends once you get home. You repeat this one class after another. Maybe find some relaxing friends to talk to at lunch and head home at 5 p.m., being tired after the day. You can take a break if you're not too overwhelmed, and it's in the evening when you can finally start working on what really makes you feel alive. It's a busy time, so you're up until 2 a.m. working and hopping between calls, and then you wake up at 6 a.m. to a hopefully less busy day. This is the story of Chandhana Sathishkumar, and despite all this, somehow she manages to carry on. For over a year, she's been pushing to level 6. She's been working 10 times harder than people like me in the developed world to get to the same place as the rest of us. As inspiring as Chandana's story is, what makes me cry is to think about all the other Chandanas in the world, whose stories I don't hear. For every 1 in a million girl that we hear about, how many others stopped at level 5 instead of level 6? How many others could only bear a month of their teachers humiliating them? How many others aren't even given the chance to try, simply because they're female? Over the next decades, we will have over 1 billion people join the internet for the first time, and there will be more Chandanas among them. The girls that we, humanity as a whole, ignore, cast aside, hold back, and otherwise fail to nurture to their full potential. In this world, humanity doesn't need more Chandanas. Chandanas need more humanity.